I'm also just going to put a question in the chat just because I need some answers. Just need to know. So if you want to answer that question in the chat, or you can just say it.
What kind of yacht are we talking about?
Good question.
No, it is what you make it. It could be like a 10-foot little sailboat. It could be like a 40-foot with a little dinghy in it. You know.
Nice.
Whatever you want.
Destination bound. That's a good answer.
Oh, let's go. Something punny. Little yachty.
Little yachty. Ship happens. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Julian, I think you and I can be friends.
Fantastic. Okay, so it's 2:05. People might still be coming in, but I'm going to get us started. So welcome to the first virtual Diversity in the Outdoors student panel. We normally do this in person, so this is kind of a weird environment for us, but I'm really excited that we're still able to at least have this. We've been trying to do it annually, and we've really had some great discussions the last couple years about what it means to be in the outdoors and, you know, hearing direct stories from students. So in case you don't know about Peak Adventures, we are an outdoor recreation nonprofit and a part of ASI, which is Associated Students Incorporated. They have, you know, the Aquatic Center, they have student engagement and outreach, the KSSU radio station, the, you know, board, so student board, which all of the decisions for ASI are actually made by students for students by that board. So if you're interested in learning more about ASI, I'd suggest you check out the website, especially because your student dollars are going to this. So you want to be aware of like what you're doing and what's going on and the really awesome events and discounts you can get with ASI. Peak Adventures, we have a couple different departments. We have a really awesome on-campus bike shop that's open, it's kicking. You can buy, sell, or you can buy, rent, and you know, get your bike fixed here at the Peak Adventures bike shop, which is pretty cool. We also have our challenge center, and while we're not doing ropes course programs, we are having virtual team building, and we have some free offerings for students. So if you're a part of a club or an organization and you want us to facilitate some team bonding, let us know because it's totally free and it's really awesome. We also have our virtual outdoor events, which I will share with you at the end of this whole shindig, but you can find that on Peak Adventures website. And then we also have our gear rentals. So if you're looking to get outdoors and try and lose yourself and get away from the COVID, check out the woods maybe. We have tents, sleeping bags, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what Peak Adventures does, a little bit about us in general. Today's conversation we're going to be having with some really awesome students from a couple different departments. The Pride Center is going to be here. We also have, you know, the Sterna Center. So they've teamed up with us and they've done that in the past. We want to say thank you to them. And we're really grateful they were able to help us find some students to pick their brains on. So just a brief outline of how we do this. We're going to go ahead and do some pre-done questions for the beginning, some stuff that we learned that students are a little bit curious about, learn the background of our panelists, and then we're going to move into audience questions. So we're excited to host the discussion. We're really going to be talking about common issues and questions surrounding diversity and inclusion in the outdoors. And then, like I said, we'll open up the floor to you all and you can ask questions that you find meaningful. If you do ask a question and engage in the conversation, you will be entered into a raffle. Very exciting. And the couple things that we have available are going to be some Aquatic Center swag and free rental coupons, which would apply for the weekend as well. We have some Pete's Coffee packages, some free Chipotle gift cards, a Nalgene, some really cool socks, a beanie. So if you're interested in any of that, you know, engage, ask a question, say a little something, and Tanner and John, my partners in crime, will keep track of that. At the end, we'll go ahead and send an email letting you know you've won. So without further ado, let's get started with just some introductions. First and foremost, each panelist, will you please say your name, your major, and your favorite outdoor activity or hobby? We can start with Diana.
Hi guys, I'm Diana. My major is computer science. I just graduated this spring. I'm mostly really into backpacking. That's like my number one, but I've been really into trail running this summer, and I do a lot of bouldering too, mostly inside, but yeah.
Okay, and we'll move to Zach.
Hi, my name is Zachary. I'm a senior here at Sac State. I am a geology major, and my favorite outdoor activity probably be camping. I do like to go backpacking, and I like to do off-roading as well. Water off-roading.
Okay, and Ethan.
Hey everyone, my name is Ethan. I'm currently a third year at Sac State. I'm a communications major, and my favorite outdoor activity is swimming. I'm a really avid swimmer, regardless of it's competitive or distance.
Awesome. And then Erica.
Hello, my name is Erica. My major is photography, and my favorite outdoor activity is camping and backpacking, and I really like taking astrophotography shots.
If anyone saw our Peak Adventures Instagram, Erica's photography is on there, and it's really awesome, like very, very cool. Okay, Jackie.
Hi everyone, my name is Jackie. I am a third year psychology major. My favorite outdoor activity is hiking.
So let's move on to the first question, which is just going to say, how did you get into your specific outdoor interests and what keeps you interested? And you guys can answer freely amongst the panelists. Whoever wants to answer whatever question, you're more than welcome to feel really committed to answering something, or if you're just not feeling it, you can skip it as well.
So I could go on this one. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to camping as a young child. My parents would take me and my siblings out. Even before I was born, they were doing this. So we would have yearly to bi-yearly trips, usually to Yosemite National Park. But we'd always mix it up, going to different places, usually like Arizona or Nevada. And so we kept on doing that as we got older. And I've continued doing it in my adult years. I'm fortunate enough to have a major where it actually requires me to study some of these areas. So it keeps me kind of grounded in that outdoor lifestyle. And I think some things that keep me interested beyond that are just the ability to explore new places and experience and share these experiences with others. I love to share these experiences with people who are new to these types of activities. I try to make it as enjoyable as possible for them. And yeah, I think just the exploration aspect of it keeps me going.
Yeah, I can go next. For me, I didn't grow up with backpacking or any outdoorsy activities, but so it wasn't until college that I kind of started getting more into hiking. And then I read the book Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I'm sure some of you have heard it, but it basically is sort of a memoir about her journey hiking part of the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a really long trail from Mexico to Canada. So I was super inspired by that. And I thought, I kind of want to give this backpacking thing a shot. And Peak Adventures does, or pre-COVID days, hosted a lot of these like leader-led outdoor trips. So I went on one and I really liked it. And that's how I got started in backpacking. So shout out to Peak Adventures for that.
Awesome. Does anyone else want to answer that question about how you got into it and what keeps you interested?
I can go, if that's cool with everyone. But for me personally, I started swimming about when I was like 8 or 9 and first started out doing competitive swimming. So like I would do swim team. I'd show up Saturday morning at crack of dawn and swim all day. But like going into college, one of my professors was a really big swimmer, and I never actually done swimming outside of, well, like a competitive pool. And he actually would invite me up on weekends, and we would go swimming up in the Sacramento River. And we would swim for about 2 hours, and we go for distance. And then at the end of the year, we ended up doing the Alcatraz swim event, where you swim from Alcatraz into the city of San Francisco. We did that together, and it was really cool. It was really awesome. And like before COVID, like I used to go swimming every day, but even still, I'm trying to find like a way for us to go swimming, you know?
Yeah, have you actually gone to Folsom Lake? Have you been swimming over there and near Lake Natoma?
Yeah, actually, we have a couple of different spots. So we've done Folsom Lake, we've done Sacramento River, and we did American River. And we also drove up to Shasta and we did Lake Berryessa.
Nice. Yeah. I love how lucky we are to be in Sacramento and be so close to those like really nice local like watering holes. I know someone from a couple different states, and they're always talking about how they would have to drive like 4 hours to get to any sort of water source. So I'm always kind of like grateful that we're so close to that. Did anyone else want to answer? Or do we want to move on to the other question? So we're going to go forward. Do you feel like you are or aren't represented or included in the outdoor community?
I'll go on this one again. I don't think I've ever felt like I wasn't included in the outdoor community, and but that doesn't say that I don't feel like people come from my background aren't feeling that way. I think I was just fortunate enough to have parents that included me in that kind of that lifestyle. But I'm from Southern California, and from a more suburban area, and there is a prominent, I mean, in California in general, but in Southern California, there's a prominent Latin population there, and I don't think that that type of, or just Southern California event in general, kind of pushes for outdoor recreational activities amongst people, and I don't think that some of the minorities in those communities are often included in or even thought of to partake and participate in these activities as well.
I think as one being a Latina and then another being a female, that I don't feel really represented. To go into the first question and answering that, I feel like I'm fortunate enough to be introduced to the outdoors through my partner. And so growing up, I never really had those opportunities to go camping or backpacking. So in ways, I do feel underrepresented.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I mean, the outdoors is predominantly, a white, kind of a white thing. I don't know how to say that. But I was talking to a friend about this, and a lot of it does come down to interest. I don't know a lot of minority people that are interested in getting outdoors. They kind of just want to stay home and relax, or do something else entirely. And as far as the media goes, I've never felt represented as far as that goes. But I think now this year, a lot of companies like REI are doing a better job of kind of initiating that inclusion. Yeah.
Yeah, as a follow-up question for you all, in this regard, how do you feel or react when you realize that you're not being represented? So when you begin to go out on that hike or backpacking or swimming, and you're like, wow, like I don't see a lot of people who look like me or who maybe are interested in the same stuff. Like, how do you react in that case?
I kind of wish that there were more resources available for people of color in that sense. So that's one thing that I was really looking forward to when applying to Sac State and getting accepted, was that, well, I definitely want to get involved in some kind of outdoorsy club. And so my hope is that I can surround myself with people like me, and then we can actually go and enjoy these activities.
Yeah, going off of what Erica was saying, honestly, growing up, I did feel kind of like uncomfortable and scared to go to places where I didn't see people like me or my family, just because I was kind of scared of my family not doing something correctly, just because of like the language barriers where there's certain things that you're not allowed to do, and that kind of made me feel like scared to maybe my family's gonna do something that we're not supposed to do. So I guess it was a lot of like being uncomfortable because of that.
Yeah, it's like what Jackie and Erica said. It is kind of uncomfortable because you do stand out, but it's also like you have to kind of be a leader for other people in your group and say, you know what, I'm out here. You can also be out here. This is a place for everybody, and I've never had problems. I think some people might be afraid of how other people are going to react to your presence there, but everyone's really kind and super friendly and welcoming.
So, do any of you have any fears or insecurities when it comes to speaking up and trying to advocate for getting more people into the outdoors?
I think for me, this is a start, which is why I'm excited to be here. I don't quite know like if there is a formula to get something started, but I definitely want to be a part of anything that I can be.
Anyone else?
To add to that, it is an uncomfortable conversation, especially with social media, where people are more outspoken about how they feel about these topics. A lot of people that aren't of color will say, leave like the politics outside, keep it out away from the outdoors. But it is important to have the conversation and kind of dissect why there aren't more people of color, and that it comes down to economic inequality, honestly.
Yeah, and kind of going off of what everybody was just saying, I don't have like fears or insecurities because I haven't really experienced I haven't experienced much negative, much of a negative response to me being in the outdoors. But this also kind of, these discussions help me realize that like maybe I'm fortunate enough to be that type of person, and I need to also educate myself that there are people within like my ethnic background that aren't represented. So I need to do what I can to be like somebody that can represent them, and yeah, just somebody who could help them get into the experience of the outdoors, I guess.
Fantastic. Thank you all. So then that leads to kind of a follow-up question. And, what type of barriers did you see when you first were getting into the outdoors, if any?
For me, I think it was definitely lack of experience. So when you go out, you kind of, as you progress with your experiences along the way, you start to notice, well, okay, like I'm gonna need, for instance, it could be the smallest thing. So if you're camping, you just think you need like your basic essentials, but then you don't really realize like you're out of like your own comfort zone. So like what comforts can you bring out with you, and what things can you do without? So I think that was a huge barrier for me at first, but I learned along the way what equipment or things like that that are necessary for me.
Yeah, for me, it was a mix of a couple things. First, it was like money and time, and also like being undocumented. I kind of didn't feel like, well, just like a mixture of those things. It was like having access to certain locations, I guess, and then also like my family always like working and not having the time to kind of take us out and go and visit places like that. for hiking and stuff like that. But recently, I've like realized that I don't have to go that far to be outside. Like, I mean, there's like, you can Google search like good hiking spots and like it'll come up. So that's something that I've realized for myself.
Do you have any particular like websites or things that you use when you're looking up your hiking spots?
Usually I'll just do like a Google search and I'll just put like near me or like near a city that I go to whenever like I go to a different city and stuff like that. But it's just like I don't have like a specific one. It's just like normal like Google research.
I'd say that all trails is a great resource for that, for hikes, and also YouTube. If you can YouTube like a specific area that you know that you're interested in hiking to, like I had been wanting to go to the Desolation Wilderness. That's a little bit east of here for years, and then I've spent like at least 6 months just watching people's videos that they uploaded, just so I could get a feel of what it's going to be like when I'm there and if it's actually something that I was interested in. But I think, yeah, at least those two resources are very accessible and very helpful.
Anyone else want to answer the barriers question at this point?
Yeah, for me, backpacking was something completely outside of my realm of knowledge. I'd only gone camping maybe once, and that's, you know, you have your car and you have everything with you, but backpacking is a completely different beast. So, and it's expensive. It's really expensive to get into, but you don't have to buy like the top end, like the high end gear from REI. They have a lot of used gears that they sell, and they have garage sales, and you can get stuff off Craigslist and Facebook, you know. So that was one thing. And then the other thing was just kind of how to do it. You know, I didn't know anybody in my life that got into backpacking that I could ask them for help with. But again, Peak Adventures has been a great resource, and the internet is really helpful as well. And to add to what Zach said about All Trails, it's my go-to app for finding trails. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know that even me in particular, like I love All Trails. I like that it tells you the mileage and it gives you the little quirks of the trail. Like, oh, around this bend, you're going to find it, like the trail kind of like dusts out a little bit. So look for like the 3 rocks that are stacked together or whatever, which is really helpful too. Did you find that there's any other resources that have helped you all overcome some of these barriers, or especially like with Jackie, like with that family, you know, where they don't really go outside and it wasn't something they normally did? Like, how'd you overcome that kind of stigma?
Well, just me having conversations with my mom and like letting her know it's not like you don't have to go that far. And I would show her pictures and show her like this is what it looks like and this is how far it is from us. You know, like there's even like tour guides that can help us like get through and stuff like that. I think just like having open conversations with my family and encouraging them by showing them pictures and showing them like the benefits of it all.
Okay, anyone else?
I think some resources that you can use are actually just use your family and friends as resources. If there's a trip that you want to plan with your friends, and say money is an issue for you, I've gone on some pretty lengthy trips where it involved like 13 people going on the trip, and it was like I think around a week and a half. This was a backpacking trip, and with gas included and food, it costs everybody like $40 to do this trip. And when you start splitting things with people and using them as resources to help you get out there, I mean, for one, you're spending time with your friends or family, and two, you don't have to bear the burden of paying for everything when everybody can kind of pitch in for something like gas or food that people get split up. So yeah, utilizing your friends and or your family, that's a very valuable resource.
I would definitely agree with that. I think that the more you expand your like social circle and you see those people with those things, like if you're interested in something, if you see someone interested in something, you just got to ask them how to do it. And I think I was really nervous myself to get into like rock climbing, for instance, because I was like, oh, I don't want to look stupid doing it. Like I don't want to have to ask someone. I don't want to be a bother. But a lot of people who are passionate about what they're into enjoy sharing it with other people. Like it's easy for them to talk about it. They want to share it. And so I think that's a really good way to say it as well, Zach. So now that we're in this COVID world, 2020, how have you adapted your outdoor interests to fit with this global pandemic?
So actually, I lost my job due to COVID. And for the past about 8 years, I was working retail. So it was very hard for me to get out on the weekends. Working retail, it's almost impossible to get those off. But due to COVID, I actually was able to get out a lot more. So that made me realize in itself that it was almost a blessing in disguise, because going forward, I want to make sure that whatever career I do go into, that I am able to have the weekends open and time off to enjoy the outdoors a lot more. Especially during this time, it was really good for my mental health as well as physical health. So I was able to benefit from that time.
For me personally, like getting outdoors during COVID is always a bit of a challenge, and especially being like a student at Sac State and taking classes, you always got to budget your time. But for me, it was always like if I couldn't get outside that day, it was going on YouTube and looking at either a documentary on a national park, or it was watching someone's hiking video, and just trying to kind of surround myself with a not real or realistic but not real digital image of this person hiking along this beautiful route. And like when I am able to get outside, I always try to go for walks around like the town that I live in, and I try to find somewhere new every day that I can always just go and explore, because you know you got to just make an adventure of it. It's kind of how to look at it.
So at the start of COVID, I think many of us were kind of at the beginning, nearing the middle of our spring semester. So it was kind of hard for me to adapt to, having to stay indoors, and I still wasn't able to get out as much. But as the semester started coming to the end, and after it ended, I had been able to get outdoors a little bit more often than I usually had. I had a little more free time. It was a way for me to get out of the house, but not be in a situation where I'm not able to social distance myself. So there was like a 10-week period where I was out every 10 or 12 week, 10-week period where I was out like every weekend, either camping or off-roading. And I really, really appreciated it. I know that there's so many people going through a hard time during this, and it's not, it's just very fortunate for me to be able to have kind of a blessing in disguise throughout it all. But yeah, I've seen some areas that I think because of COVID, there have been a lot of people that wanted to get out as well. So I've seen a lot of places that are not usually packed with a lot of people getting outdoors, but I've seen them with more and more people. And one of the more unfortunate aspects of it is I'm seeing a little bit more waste, a little bit more littering around some of these spots because of like the influx of people that are trying to get out. So that's one thing that's been kind of a bummer about it all.
On that note, with this influx of first-time participants, a lot of people just starting to get into the outdoors, just trying to, keep sane during this time. What do you think would be some helpful recommendations for newcomers to know getting outside and trying to adapt to that?
I'll go first. So I think I trying to understand the question. Is it that what would we recommend for people that are starting to explore for the first time outdoors? Okay. I think doing a lot of research on gear is super important, and staying hydrated, super important, especially when you're hiking. And especially over the summer, I was able to get out a few times, and I'd be on a certain trail and I'd see people with just like one single water bottle, and it was super hot. The trail was pretty intense. So I think, yeah, just doing research on gear and staying hydrated is super important.
I'd encourage people to start off simple. If they're doing this for the first time, don't choose something that's going to take you out of your comfort zone, or an extreme leap out of your comfort zone. So being outdoors, I think one of the great things about it is it does put you out of your comfort zone. But if you're starting on something that is that's usually required for a more experienced person, that's your first thing you're trying to do, that could be like a make it or break it situation for you if you're trying to get in the outdoors, and people get discouraged very easily doing that. So I know Erica was mentioning do some research on your gear. I think, like I was mentioning before, use your friends and family as a resource. Like, go along with somebody who has experienced some of these activities. And if you don't want to spend a fortune, like, I would say if it's offered to you, let people or borrow people's gear if they have it available. Just because you don't want to spend $250 on a brand new Osprey backpack and just figure out that you really don't like backpacking. And so if somebody has gear that you can use and there are simple activities that you can do, then I would say start with that.
Tori mentioned leave no trace in the chat, which is, I think, the most important thing as far as, your own basic survival. But when you're going out in nature, it's very important to respect nature and leave it better than you found it. Like, pack out any trash you have, like any little pieces of paper that like fly away. Like, you want to put that like in a bag, a Ziploc bag, and take it with you. Don't take anything. Don't take flowers or rocks or whatever because you think it's cool. Like, it's it's important to just be respectful of the place that gives you a lot, and kind of showcase that to others and say, hey, like, this is how we come out here and treat the earth. So yeah, just lead by example.
I also wanted to go off of what I saw Tanner post in the chat is also utilizing Peak Adventures. This is for students. This is such a valuable resource that is available to you. And I'm sure that Peak Adventures provides gear that is up to standard, where you're not going to be out there with some crappy Walmart tent, and you're not going to have a great time in certain scenarios. But yeah, I think that is a very valuable resource.
Great. Anyone else before we move on?
Just real quick, going off what Erica was saying, like making sure you take care of yourself. I mean, like making sure you have water and you have food and you're not going into it with just as a little water bottle and you're like, all right, I got this. Because I mean, when it comes down to it, like, it's a really cool experience, but you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself first and like you're staying hydrated so you can fully enjoy this experience.
Okay, I was just typing in the chat about sunscreen because I just did that last time. And I went on like a 10-mile hike and I got there and I was like, oh my God, I forgot sunscreen. And I thought, it's going to be fine. I'll be good. And I came back looking like the mascot for Red Lobster. It was so bad, so bad. So water, sunscreen, keep it, keep the skin from the wrinkles, all that fun stuff. So we're going to move on to the next question. And that's going to be, what are some common misconceptions that people have when it comes to the outdoors? And how can individuals in recreation combat these misconceptions to be more inclusive? So kind of a long question, so I'll read it one more time. What are some common misconceptions people have about the outdoors? And how can individuals in recreation combat these misconceptions to be more inclusive?
So for the answer that I prepared for this, I think some of the misconceptions are what people think is going to be required from them when they're in the outdoors. Like, are they going to be are they going to be roughing it? Is it going to be sleeping on the ground on the dirt every night? Is it going to be getting extremely dirty? Is it going to be expensive? Like, there's so many levels of outdoor activity that can require very much of this type of stuff, or it can be very little. You know, there's the term glamping, which is just like very luxurious camping. And so while that isn't for everybody, that is like an easier way to get into these types of activities. And so other things are like some of the things you have to sacrifice from being away from home. I think some of the misconceptions is like people can't go without sleeping in their bed, or people can't go a day without a shower. I'd say I would encourage people to not view these things as burdens when you're in the outdoors, but rather just challenges to yourself. Because when you're in an outdoor setting and you go without these comforts that you have from home, you start to appreciate how much or how lucky you are to have them back at home. Like when I'm on a backpacking trip, I can't tell you how much like a really good favorite restaurant sounds when I come back home. And I can't tell you how well I sleep after like rafting down a river all day, or just, even that shower when you get back home. Some of these things that when you're in the outdoors and you're sacrificing the comforts from home, you start to appreciate them when you come back to them. And I think, some of the common misconceptions is that these are going to be just overall burdens for you, when they could just they could just be challenges for yourself and lead you to appreciate them a lot more.
I think another misconception that I hear often is wildlife and like, oh, what if a bear attacks you? Or people always ask me, are you going to bring a knife with you or like a gun with you? I'm like, no, it's like the craziest thing. But wildlife, I think, are more afraid of us than we are of them. And it's just about knowing how to store your food, or, don't do anything stupid like I don't know, like leave your food out or have any things that will attract bears. But, you have to be careful. There are a lot of snakes on different trails, and there are bears. I've seen quite a few bears on my backpacking trips, but it's not anything to be afraid of. Last night, I camped out in the desert without a tent and just my sleeping bag and mattress, and it was perfectly fine. So, yeah, wildlife are, I think, the part of the experience, but there's no need to let it deter you from going.
I can't really speak to camping as much because I've only been camping twice, and both times I struggled mightily with knowing what to do. But in regards to like swimming or rafting, like I definitely think that one of the big misconceptions for swimming is like the fish are gonna come up and like try to bite you, and that's never true. They are always way deeper in the water than you are, and frankly, they are terrified of you. They don't know what you are. So that's a big issue. And when it comes to doing swimming for the first time, it definitely is. There is a misconception that it's very challenging and it's going to like, the water is going to just completely come in your face and like just go straight down your throat and be like, oh, you're going to choke on water. But the big thing is just like, it's not, it's pretty peaceful. And as long as you know like how to swim, or you have someone with you who's a very experienced swimmer, then you should be fine. And also just knowing where the lifeguard's at, then that's definitely a big concern that you should know. But swimming's awesome. You should always try it because it's just healthy and it's awesome.
Can I ask you, Ethan, to elaborate a little bit more on like the challenges you had during your first time camping? Because I think it helped other people to know like the first time sometimes isn't going to be as, exciting, and just kind of see what kind of happened there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, of course. My first time camping, I went with two of my friends, and none of us knew what we were doing. So we spent about 4 to 5 hours just pitching the tent. And I'm pretty sure one of my friends, he got in the tent because we got it up one time right, and we started walking down to the car to start unpacking our food. and we just heard a crash and we just saw him covered in all of our tent. So I mean, definitely reading the instructions for how to put together the tent is a big step. But for us, we were always just really nervous about like, how do people look at us, these three guys who have no idea what camping is and we've never done this before. And like, it definitely would have made us very nervous to ask for help. And looking back on it, I definitely think that if we had gone across the street to the other family that was camping and we said, hey, we've never done this, can you help us, like give us some advice, it would have gone a lot smoother and we would have enjoyed it a lot more. And definitely when it came to fishing, like knowing that like with fishing, you actually have to clean the fish and you can't just pull them out and then expect them to like be all good. That was definitely another learning curve that we faced. But just ask for help. Like, and if you're afraid to ask for help, just know like everyone's been there at some point. This isn't something we're born knowing how to do. Just don't be afraid to ask for help. People are pretty friendly.
If I may piggyback off of Ethan's first time experience, mine was very much similar in the sense that I had no idea what I was doing. The tent that the group and I used was used, and we were camping in Sedona during winter, and we left our site for a little bit and came back and it was snowing. And so we literally just like grabbed our tent and like threw it in the car and tried to find shelter for the night because it was just a poorly planned trip. But I think those tough times or those tough experiences really is what kind of sets you up for being successful for your next trip.
Does anyone else want to talk about some of their first experiences at all before we move on?
Yeah, my first time backpacking without Peak Adventures, without having somebody have all the food and all the gear like laid out for me was it was difficult. I think that after that time, I was like, I don't want to do this again, but you know, nature calls you, and I kept going, and now I feel super confident in doing it, and I have gone by myself plenty of times. So I think it's just with anything in life, you know, you fail and then you try again and you get better. Yeah.
So one of my first times experiencing something in the outdoors that was pretty rough for me was when I went whitewater rafting up in Klamath Trinity area near Humboldt County. And that place is known for having some, I guess, world-class whitewater rapids. And so I hadn't grown up doing much of that before, and my experience with it was pretty good, but then I didn't really have the experience or maybe even the respect for like the river. And I remember this one time, or one of the times on the trip, because it was a multi-day trip, I got back onto the kayak we had a whitewater raft and also a kayak, and we were switching in between them. And I got back onto the kayak, but I left my life jacket on the raft itself. And so when I when I went down a really bad rapid, I was actually launched out of the kayak, and then I didn't have my life jacket on, and I was kind of just kept underwater because the rapids were so strong, and it was a very frightening experience. And I think that kind of goes into one of the misconceptions about the outdoors for some people, is that it's always going to be safe. Like I think, well, it's not an attempt to scare anybody, but you do have to look out for your safety. That's usually number one when you're out there, because if you're not looking out for your own safety, then you can't look out for anybody else's safety. And so that was an eye-opener for me, just to be able to like think back and think of what do I need to pretty much live on this river here. And so yeah, that was a pretty tough one for me.
So to answer Tanner's question, which was, did having your first experience backpacking with Peak Adventures help prepare you for planning your own trips? Yeah, definitely. Kind of laid out the basics for what I needed. I didn't know how to use a stove, and I forgot what the leader's name was. I think his name was Michael maybe, but he was pretty helpful in getting everybody to participate with the camping, and he was very informative as far as like leave no trace behind kind of thing. So yeah, that was very helpful.
Anyone else want to comment on anything there? Cool. I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, so we've kind of touched on this next question a little bit already, but just to summarize what we've kind of touched on, what has helped you get to where you are today in outdoor recreation, and what is some advice you'd want to give people to set them off in a similar way?
Sorry, I was muted there. So I know I mentioned where I had kind of initially had my experience from, but what has helped me get me to where I am today, I would say it's mainly my friends and family and loved ones. Like these experiences that I've had in the outdoors, most of these experiences aren't meant to be done alone. While they can be done alone, sharing an experience with these people, it's always been super enjoyable. And just beyond that, just having an eagerness to get out and explore more and feel more comfortable with being away from home. I think those things have helped me get me where I am today. And like I mentioned before, to get people started off in a similar direction, just start simple. Do not choose something that's too far to your comfort zone, and utilize your friends or family, your loved ones who have shared those experiences before, and piggyback off their experience.
And then just to follow up with that a little bit, so you kind of talked about like finding community in the outdoors. Do you find that there is also a mental health benefit at all to being in the outdoors? And if so, like what do you find that to be for yourself?
Definitely. 1,000% is, so for me personally, especially getting outdoors a lot during quarantine was huge. Feeling the heaviness of the world and just being able to go out there and kind of free my mind. I do a lot of like painting landscapes while I'm out or drawing, and then I focus a lot on photography out there as well. So just finding creative outlets on top of already being outdoors and getting your exercise, I feel like it benefits you and mentally and physically. So yeah, definitely a lot of mental health benefits.
Kind of what going up. Oh, sorry. I already went. You go ahead.
Okay. So for me, it's been a learning experience. It still is a learning experience. I know that for me, like it has helped me mentally and like even physically, also spiritually. Being Indigenous, like I feel so much more connected to nature, and that's like a really beautiful feeling that you really like can't get anywhere else or doing anything, and feeling like I'm respecting nature and it respecting me. So I can say that it's like a very like mental, physical, and spiritual thing for me.
So kind of touching off what Erica and Jackie were saying, as far as mental, what it does for your mental well-being, some of the things that I look at it as are, it's not always easy when you're in the outdoors. So you're going to have some issues with whether it be camping or just various issues that do come up. And so dealing with these issues really helps with my stress management and help me deal with my frustration, because you can't always have everything come to you or happen so easily, especially when you're in the outdoor settings. And I noticed that I like to blame on like a lot of problems on a lot of other things other than myself. And so when I'm in these situations, it's it's good for me to be able to realize that maybe some of those things were because of me, and it helps me not really act like that, but yeah, I think just with stress management and learning how to control your frustration and try to be in control of your own situation as much as you can, it's very good. It teaches you that very well.
If I could just add one thing too, I know I see Valeria on my screen, who's down here for me. She's been private messaging me, and I think she has a really good perspective to share with you all. Valeria, do you have your mic on?
Oops. Okay. Yeah. Kind of. I was telling John that I relate a lot to Jackie. How she was saying like her family, never really went out as much. Neither did I. I never went out. And the first time I did go camping or anything was through campus, but it was through a class, and we went backpacking for 3 days. And let me tell you, so the course itself is preparing you for the 3 days, and I still felt like I wasn't ready, or like I didn't know what I was doing. But I had everything. We had like a check-off list, and we got our stuff from Peak. And I don't know, I was so scared the whole time, even though like everybody in that class, a lot of them never went out either. And then relating to the, mental health and stuff like that, when I was there, oh, the scenery was just so beautiful. Just looking at the sky, I was like, I don't know if I'm just an emotional person, but I like hid in a little area and I like cried myself. Like, it was just so beautiful, and I just got to let everything out in a way, and it felt really good. I don't know, I'll never forget that experience either. So, and then I want to, okay? I remember going home, I wanted to like take my family, and like I remember I was telling them like, oh, we should plan something, and I don't know, like I'm a little nervous to take them out because I think someone mentioned it, like I feel like I'll be more stressed out with my family because they don't listen. And like I would like to give them the resources that everyone provides, like social media. There's so many resources that can help inform them and let them know like what they can and can't do, and it won't be so stressful for me, and maybe it'll give them that peace of mind that I feel like they need as well. And yeah, you tell them. And my family back home, well, my boyfriend's family, they do a lot of like church stuff, and they like hike for a weekend, and they'll do prayers, and like they kind of like, it's a whole mental thing for them. And my brother went recently, and he like came back a whole new person. Like he's like starting to talk to everybody, like apologizing to people, working on his relationship and his family. So I think it's a beautiful thing, and little by little, especially now with COVID, people have a little bit more time, maybe not the money, but even just going outside your little area, your neighborhood, just walking around, it's a nice mental relaxation, I guess. And it's good. I don't know. I'm nervous.
Thank you so much for being willing to share that, Valeria. I appreciate it. I'm sure everyone here appreciates that.
Thanks.
Most definitely. I think that's like the point of the panel, is to create some discussion and to let you all share your thoughts and to know like that you're not alone in feeling that the way that you do. I mean, being in the outdoors is it's characteristically predominantly white, in the way that we see it a lot of the time. And, I'm white, and even me getting outside, that feeling of like it being uncomfortable still to just learn a new thing in general, let alone I don't even have that barrier of like that separate item. As a female going outside, it was a little different too, just because it also is a male dominated sport a lot of the time. So for the females, I have a question. Did you ever feel that kind of difference in regards to like your gender and going outdoors? Like, did you feel like maybe it wasn't your place in any way in that way?
At first, I felt like I wasn't confident in the ways that I wasn't strong enough to backpack. I'm not very much of a athletic person myself, so I didn't feel like I could do it. But after my first backpacking trip and like completing it, I remember just like bawling my eyes out and being like so proud of myself. So that's and like there's so many ways that like nature gives back to us, and I always remind myself of that time because again, I didn't feel comfortable, I didn't feel confident in doing that, but afterwards it was just like the most exhilarating feeling, and that's why I continue to do it.
Okay, anyone else want to answer that one at all? Yeah, I just was asking, so I know as a female, so we see a couple different things. I'm just re-answering for Diana. She asked me to repeat the question. We see, or the media might portray the outdoors as being a white, male-dominated space. And so I'm just asking, as you know, we've kind of gone over like the different backgrounds when it comes to, is it a white space? But I'd like to talk about, is it a male-dominated space? So for the females, and the males can chime in as well if you feel like that is or isn't the case. But I just want to know how you feel about that statement. Do you feel like it is a male-dominated space? And how did you try to adapt to that if you felt it was?
Yeah, absolutely. I recently hiked the John Muir Trail, which is like 200 miles through the eastern, or I don't know, through the Sierras. But yeah, it was mostly guys every day. I did see plenty of women. There were women hiking by themselves, including myself. But yeah, it is a lot of mostly older white guys. And it's, I don't know, it doesn't bother me, but because they're all pretty friendly, but it's still like as a woman, you are like more vulnerable to things, and you're out there like in the middle of nowhere, and it is a little scary. But yeah.
Do you do anything to like handle that fear in any way? Or do you just say like, oh, I'm just going to get over it? Or is there something that you do to make yourself feel more confident when you go outdoors?
Um, I kind of just have to trust that no one's gonna do anything. And no one has, you know, no one's been, there are some peculiar, weird people out there, but, you know, I've never have ever felt in danger or anything. You know. Oh, also to add to that is always tell your family where you're going and like send them your location, what trail you're going on, your itinerary, when you're gonna be back, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's like across the board for anyone. Like whenever I'm doing a trip, I definitely text my parents or like a friend. I'll be like, hey, I'm going to be doing this trail today. I'll text you at this time. If you don't hear from me, you should call me. If you still don't hear from me, you know, let someone know. Okay. And then did anyone else want to speak to that question at all? Otherwise, I think we're going to move on to audience questions.
I just want to say Julian had a great answer in chat, and I can read that off just because I think it's a really valuable perspective for those of you who aren't or can't read chat. Julian said, I grew up in a predominantly Mexican neighborhood. To me, the mountains were places where wealthy whites lived and where we were not welcome. So I had no interest in exploring the outdoors, nor in hiking or camping or anything like that. It took some time and effort for me to understand and appreciate nature. And that was from Julian.
I feel like that's definitely relatable for a lot of people. So I am going to go ahead and ask that if you're a part of the audience, to go ahead and just put in the chat your question if you have any. This is also a conversation, so if you feel like you want to go ahead and unmute, you're more than welcome to. Let's just make sure to be courteous to not be chatting when another person's chatting or answering a question. But I'd love to hear from the audience. Again, remember, anyone who asks a question in the chat will be entered into a raffle to win something. And statistically speaking, based off of the amount of people here, there is a high chance you'll win. So go ahead and put those through, let us know, and we'll start reading those off as they come in. So the first one I see here is, oh, let me see if I go up a little bit. Campground management. Pass on to camp management. Kelsey, is your question for the panelists specifically or as advice? Do you want to unmute and go ahead and ask that one aloud?
I mean, it's really for anyone who has any ideas. As I said in the chat, I am a camp counselor during summers for a camp for people with diabetes. I grew up attending this camp and then just never left. They can't get rid of me. And we have been talking a lot about how to increase our diversity. It is predominantly white. We do have a scholarship program for some of our lower income families, but we've been talking a lot about, okay, how do we continue to spread the word and encourage more people to come?
If any of the panelists want to try and answer that question, how would you suggest that Kelsey tries to increase the diversity of her program? And it doesn't have to be like some crazy professional experience answer. Just like, what do you think would get you to try out that camp a little bit more?
I would say prioritizing accessibility. Also, like acknowledging the language barriers that some people may have. Anything as small as just like welcoming messages, even for different like diverse groups. And I think that's all I can think of right now.
Would anyone else like to answer that question?
I'll give it a shot. The first thing that came to mind was like, whenever we try to promote anything for like sorority stuff or anything, we always think high schools or like schools in general, and just going out to different communities. And I think a lot of the times minorities just lack the knowledge. So if we go out and like spread the word and just share a little bit of what you do, how it helps, how they could be involved, and let them know like a lot, they'd probably be a little more interested and feel like, oh, they're kind of welcoming, you know, and I don't know. Yeah, you tell them. But yeah.
Great. So hopefully that helped a little bit, Kelsey, but we're going to go on to the next one, and that is, does Peak provide trip planning services? So I'll answer this one since the panelists don't work for Peak Adventures. We do have a new feature where we're going ahead and you can actually meet one-on-one with Miguel, our outdoor adventure manager. He's in the feed if you can see him in the view there. You want to unmute and say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. So we have on our webpage, you can reserve times generally on Tuesdays. I'm open to other days for you to either do a Zoom meeting or come into Peak, hopefully, and be able to discuss what it is that you need to go on a trip, including an itinerary, information about locations, equipment, anything like that. So if you have a desire or just want some questions answered about any of our local areas, you can go online and reserve that spot. And we can also message by email, as it'll be an email message will be sent directly to me when you do reserve. On top of that, to kind of help out with the last question and Kelsey, I have done a little bit of outreach in terms of diversity and getting people into the outdoors who might come from places or backgrounds that don't have much accessibility. The big one is collaboration and partnerships with organizations that already have contact with those different backgrounds. That way, it's kind of like, hey, we're already an organization that touches these people that can kind of speak the language of whatever community you're trying to reach. And then you're just providing the more technical support of, we can get you out here equipment in whatever way that is, but really having an organization that already speaks the language of whatever group that is can make a big difference.
Great. So the next question, and this is for the panelists, is going to be, what are your favorite places to explore the outdoors? So where do you like to go?
I think for me, overall, just the Sierra Nevadas in general, just traveling to various locations around there. I think one of my favorite places to drive, I guess, and travel around that area is Highway 108, also referred to as Sonora Pass. Um, it is a super beautiful drive, and it leads you out to, if you're coming from the west end going to the east, it leads you out to Highway 395. And with the Eastern Sierras, like if you're used to places like Yosemite or Sequoia National Park, it's such a stark difference being on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevadas and seeing how dramatic it is over there. So I would say, yeah, Sierra Nevadas in general, and being able to experience that from Highway 395 as well. It's probably one of my favorite places.
Any other panelists want to talk about their favorite spots they visited? We're moving on. I did see some of those answers in the chat as well. So if anyone wants to take a look at those, Mount Shasta, Immigrant Wilderness were mentioned as well. And yeah, that backside, that 395 is gorgeous. There's a lot of hot springs back there. If you guys are interested in some leisurely recreation, 10 out of 10 would recommend. So there was a question on here that says, any tips on traveling with kids? Are any of our panelists parents? You want to raise your hand if you are? No? I thought not, maybe. But I did bring on an expert. So our associate director at Peak Adventures, Val Regner, is in here now, and I just wanted to pick her brain on if she has any thoughts about traveling or getting outdoors with kids.
You know, we don't change much when we travel with our kids. We might not go out as long. We definitely bring a lot more equipment, but you know, we were on multi-day camping trips with my daughter when she was 6 months old, and she did great. She was a trooper. And then I have 3 bonus kids, and I know that their mom takes them backpacking. We haven't had a backpacking trip yet. We just bought a bunch of gear for their birthday this past summer, so we're hoping to be able to get them out backpacking with us. But honestly, we don't change much other than having to bring extra equipment, and we try not to be in the car too long. We try to stay within an hour and a half to 2 hours max, because they just get antsy and there's lots of car sickness. So we have extra bags for the car rides, but you know, we try to, you know, I was camping and backpacking very, very young. My parents didn't really make many changes for us, so that's kind of how we're going about it. So I don't have really good other than just throw them in there. They're fine. They're adaptable. They're better than we are, I think, in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think it also probably depends on what age they're first getting exposed. So, you know, like I said, my daughter, 6 months old, was the first time we took her on a multi-day camping trip. And, you know, the kids have been sleeping outside a bunch. But if, you know, you're starting with a 10-year-old and it's their first time maybe out of the city, maybe doing baby steps. I do a lot of volunteering with Girl Scouts. And so what they do is they have sleep outs in the backyard before they take the girls out, you know, out of the city. And that's just kind of the more baby steps, because I think they're more aware of the noises that are outside that we don't typically hear, and that might be a little bit scary for them. So, you know, that probably be my best tip, is if they're a little bit older and they haven't experienced it, just doing some little baby steps before really taking them out and, you know, way out nowhere and expecting them to be successful. So I hope that answers somebody's question.
Awesome. Thanks, Val. I really appreciate you jumping on for that. So it looks like we've got a couple more questions, and I'm probably going to leave it at that after these two, just because we're getting to the end of our time limit here. But I want to say thank you all for your questions. And if you end up having more and we just haven't touched on them yet, feel free to email us at Peak Info. You can see that on our website. I'll have Tanner throw that in the chat again, just so you can reach out, because we still want to have the conversation. And you know, check out the social medias of each of the panelists too. You know, send them a DM, ask them if you need that extra advice. So I'm just going to touch on this rather quickly as well. So the equipment, I know that Tanner answered, we do have equipment for both students and non-students, but actually all of our programming, a common misconception is that Peak Adventures doesn't have access for the general public. We actually service everyone. So The students just get a super rad discount, but you're more than welcome to use our services as a member of the general public. So your friends and family can come to us even if they don't go to Sac State. So just a heads up. So I'm just going to end it with this one, which I actually think this is a very good question. I'm going to have each of the panelists answer this. So have you found any histories or stories that are tied to recreational places? And have those helped you further connect with that given place? And we'll end on that one after everyone here answers.
Yeah, I think something that's really important to acknowledge is that a lot of these spaces that you recreate on has been stolen land from indigenous groups. And, you know, like to acknowledge that privilege of being able to come here and, you know, recognize who at the expense of who, right? Like it, you know, a lot of genocide occurred from having these spaces created, and it's important to remember like where these lands came from and the people that took care of these spaces for thousands of years, and to really respect that. I'm going to post in the chat an app that it kind of like tracks your location, and it will tell you like which tribe the land you are on, like who it belonged to, which has been really helpful just knowing. And yeah, that's my bit on it.
I think for me, the histories or stories, the way that I would look at it is more so like the natural history to some of these places. And I guess for me, since I'm a geology major, it's something that I have a little bit more, I imagine I have a little bit more fundamental understanding of some of these places. But I think if even just for some basic knowledge, even like for giant sequoias, if you understand the history of how long they've been there, how long they've taken to grow, then you could learn to appreciate them more. You could learn to, or maybe, you know, you could learn to try to keep them going, keep those ecosystems and environments alive and not have a larger impact on them. Like, it's so sad to see some of these very old trees that have been carved into by people who want to just carve their initials on them. And so to be able to appreciate what has gone into formation of some of these areas and how long they've been there without our footprint in these areas, I think it is worth looking into. And kind of going into another resource that is available for students that kind of touches on this is in the geology department, we offer a class for, it's for all majors, it's not just for geology majors. It is Geology 184, and it's a field studies trip. And it's just it's a 3-day weekend trip, which takes you, they've usually gone down to Trona, near Death Valley, but there was a pretty big earthquake that kind of disrupted the highways recently in recent years. So they had to switch it up. Last year, we went and traveled all around Western Nevada and saw some really cool places. So this year, we were supposed to go to Yosemite National Park and spend 3 days there. And just because of COVID, that wasn't able to happen. But essentially the trip is, you would bring your own gear, like you know, your own camping gear, because you're camping out each one of these nights, and they provide the meals. So Peak Adventures could help out with this type of thing too. But you're stopping along the way to these various locations, and you're learning about the natural history behind some of the geologic locations. So I think that's a great resource to allow people to travel around to different areas and see some really cool things.
Okay, and then I'm going to have each panelist answer this one as well. So Erica, would you like to go ahead and kind of talk about those stories as well?
So I don't have any particular like background stories, but I do want to agree with Diana 100% that we do have to take care of these sacred lands. Whatever you pack in, pack out. Don't take anything from the land. I know everything's beautiful, but it's meant to be beautiful there and not on your shelf at home. So yeah, definitely just taking care of these lands is incredibly important.
Awesome. Thank you. Ethan, do you want to follow up with anything?
Yeah, I can try to answer to the best of my ability, but for me personally, I haven't been camping that much, but one of the things that I've really enjoyed about is learning about the Alaskan Wildlife Preserve. And one of my favorite things was learning about Marty Murray, who was with her husband, and how they just trekked across this preserve and just argued that it should be a preserve. And for me, learning about it constantly and just like understanding why it was so hard for them to go through it and get everything down, and the struggle that it made for them to have it become a national park, it just meant so much to me. And just to like kind of see how much like they fought for this. And quite frankly, it's just distressing to see that they want to take it away essentially and have it be used for oil. But for me, understanding the story behind it is definitely not just a key thing for me trying to appreciate the preserve itself, but also just understanding how it affects our history from the past, present, and the future. I can't very much speak on my experience personally going somewhere because I have not been able to educate myself as much as I'd like to, but I hope to do that in the future.
Okay, and then Jackie?
Yeah, I would just have to highlight with what Diana and Erica said. Like it really is important to acknowledge Indigenous lands.
I really love that that question was interpreted so differently by all of you. Like the fact that we are able to talk about the people of like who had the space beforehand, the earth in general, and then also the fact that environmental issues. I think that's really cool, and it kind of just shows in itself the diversity, and not just who we are, but the way you all think and what's important to you. And I think that's really cool. So if I take anything from this conversation, it's going to be like that. I just love how all of our minds work, and it's so cool to me. So we are definitely getting to the end of our time, which I lied to you when I said it would be short. I lied. This conversation has actually been so good. And I just want everyone to know that I really appreciate our panelists for coming in and for taking the time to like share their opinions and just their time in general with us and with the students. Thank you to the students and any staff and faculty who are here. It's been really good, and I love how interactive we've all been in the chat as well. So if you posted a question, we'll go ahead and connect with you. Tanner, do you want to talk about how we might connect with them email-wise? Will we have that already in the space here?
Yeah, keep an eye out for the email that you registered for this with. If you're just on a generic one and you didn't come in through your Sac State Zoom account, pop your email in the chat right now so that we can connect your email to your question if you end up winning.
And then for anyone who is interested in engaging more, and maybe this inspired you to want to go outdoors a little bit more, or just want to check out an outdoor activity, please let us know. You're more than welcome to stop by our office, bring a mask, to email us, to give us a call on our office line, check out our website, check out our social media. We're here for the students and for the general public in the community, just to show you how to get outdoors and be that mentor for you, help you with those financial barriers by getting you like cheaper but still quality gear. And just see what we do, see who we are. Other than that, the last question I have, and this question is for everyone before we head out here, is if you were to join us at Peak Adventures, what are some of the activities that you'd want to try, and what sort of trips are you interested in? We're still trying to make sure that we're giving the people what they want. So this is a really good time to shout out, let us know in the chat. You can unmute your mic, let us know, what do you want Peak Adventures to provide for you in regards to the outdoor world?
Yeah, or if there's anything related to diversity and inclusion that we can change in our programming that would make you feel more accepted in our programming. So all of the above.
I don't know if you guys have done this before, but I think it'd be really cool to have a sort of a safety first course. Yeah, I think that'd be really helpful.
Like general safety or like activity specific?
I mean, I guess it does depend on the activity, but yeah, like just basic first aid kit, like, you know, or like, you know, dealing with rain and storms and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I feel like that is a barrier for a lot of people. They see the outdoors as intimidating, so having like a course or a trip that is really focused on safety and how to like make sure people are staying safe outside could be well received.
Kind of banking off that, um, I've done I've gotten my wilderness first aid certification down in Southern California, and I know that in that course it was like a 3-day course that you can become certified in. There were local colleges around the area that had utilized the company providing that education and certification. I think that would be awesome for something to even maybe look into or consider, because for one, you're teaching people like very, very practical and very, very useful first aid information. And then you're allowing people to be able to utilize that like legally kind of out in certain situations. So I think that would be something that'd be cool to look into.
Yeah, we actually do wilderness first aid classes. 2 of our staff members are trained to teach them, so we teach them in-house. And then there's always room to grow into like wilderness first responder and some of the more advanced classes, but we definitely have some wilderness first aid classes planned coming up as soon as we can return to in-person.
Well, I did not know that. That's great.
Yeah.
Do any of the participants have any suggestions or anything that you'd be interested in seeing? I did see horseback riding and surfing, definitely some cool options, but any other ones?
I've been trying to get fishing to work out for so long. We have the new fishing club on campus, so I was trying to partner with them. So hopefully in the future we can try and get a fishing trip going, because I know that there's a huge market for that, or interest, because we didn't really touch on it much, but outdoor rec is so expansive, like fishing, hunting. It's easy to overlook how many activities, horseback riding, like outdoor rec is very, very broad, and it's easy to think about just backpacking or hiking or climbing, but there's a lot of other areas we can go into with outdoor rec.
Great. So again, thank you all so much for coming in. If you have any further questions, feel free to send those to Peak Info. Go ahead and check that out. Also, in regards to the off-roading, yeah, like we definitely have the Rubicon Trail like right near us, so that'd be pretty cool. And sledding would be cool. Dang, you guys have a lot of good ideas now. I'm gonna write these down. Yeah, so if you have any further questions, let us know. Email us, DM us, call us, come visit us. Thank you all for joining. If you have anything specific, if you need LI credit, send us an email, let us know. And then keep an eye out for the raffle prizes, because who doesn't love Chipotle? Okay, just round of applause for everyone for coming in, and we are going to sign off. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Tori, for having us.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.